Okay, everyone, we're going to start the residents panel here, and we have, this is really the topping the bill of today, I'm sure you'll all agree, with a star-studded cast here. I'm so grateful that people have come along, and what we want to do during this time, and just everyone who's from Balsall Heath here, because we've got so many, everyone will have to keep quite short what they say, but I think we still want to hear from everyone if we can. And we're very aware, having done this community-led retrofit work in Balsall Heath over the last year, that not everything has been perfect, but we are really, we're grateful for the work which has been done, and what we want to do in this session is really to celebrate what has been good, to be honest about what may not have been quite right, but also to look forward to the future and treat it as an imagination lab to say, okay, this went wrong, but in the future, this is what I would like to see. Now, we've got, I think I was going to get everyone to introduce themselves, but because we've got so many, I'll just go round very quickly. We've got Rajan here and Fran, who live in housing co-op houses, which are yet to be retrofitted, but have now got funds. We've got Dan Gregory from Birmingham City Council, who was one of the project manager leads from the city, who was able to help us to get much more community leadership into this scheme than we might otherwise have had. We've got Anji Page. We've got Jan holding, not her baby, we have to say, Jan holding Sabrina's new baby. Sammy, thank you. We've got Sabrina holding baby Noah and Furkan. We've got Navin, Mr. Khan, Marta, Shaheem, Noreen, and Joe. Marta, I know you've hung on and you've got to go quite soon. Okay, you can stay. Okay, fine. So I think, as Mr. Khan, as you are the most venerable citizen here, I wonder if you would like to start by just saying what's been good, what's been not so good about the scheme, and what you would like to say.
Well, everything, they done good jobs, panels and all these things. I couldn't say anything else, but
you've been a real street champion on Melrose Avenue, where Jan lives as well, and I think we signed up 95% of Melrose Avenue with your help, didn't we?
Well, thank you. I try my best to please, but you can't please everyone.
But you had to wait a long time in the middle as well.
Yeah, I've been waiting a long time for panel, but they end of the day they done it. And the lady come last November, and she wasted about 1.5 hours checking everything and photos. After that, I didn't hear anything at all. That's I can say.
That's lovely. Thank you for sharing your story. Maybe we'll just pass the microphone around and people can share their personal stories. And I think really just to look at, what was good, what wasn't so good, but particularly what we can learn going forward. So, Navin, and we should just say Navin lives on Court Road in a house that was designed in the 80s, 70s, a newer house than many of the houses residents here live in, which are sort of pre-First World War houses. Navin.
Hi, so we live in a 70s semi, and we weren't expecting any work. I did a bit of door knocking with Joe and John, primarily targeting the Victorian houses, which obviously are, more leaky and need more work. But yeah, we were one of the first actually on the road to get our. We got solar panels. We got, they came to sort of plane some of the doors so that they fitted and there were no drafts. We got some extractor fans put in the bathrooms, it's great. It's all been really good. All the contractors that have come, multiple visits, all came when they said they'd come. All the contractors came, didn't leave any mess, tied it up. It was brilliant, and even the scaffolders came, and told us what to expect. And actually, when the scaffolders came, the solar panel guys came exactly on the same day. So it was, couldn't have asked for anything better, really. One slight thing, one door was slightly off, and they haven't come back to do that. That's the only thing, but not even worth mentioning, really, because everything that they promised, they delivered. And just looking at the last 3 months of energy usage, my electricity bill has certainly, it's gone down by a third at least. So, can't ask for, a lot more than that. And it's been a really good process, and, thank you.
We had our old house get retrofit with the solar panels and some insulation on the loft. We got to use it like maybe for a month or two, but we sold our house afterwards. We didn't get to enjoy it much, but it was brilliant. Everything was smooth and installed quickly. I wasn't even expecting to be done when we first signed up, but it was great. Within 1 year, we got all those installed. And in terms of energy usage, the usage, kilowatt hour usage, is definitely dropped significantly, maybe 60%. Of course, it doesn't directly reflect to the bill like that, but it is brilliant that we don't use that much energy from the grid anymore, at least in the summer. So I didn't get to experience it in the winter, but I believe it's going to be good as well. Yeah.
But perhaps we could just check as well, because Furkan and Sabrina's house, we were all hoping that the big gable end wall on your house, where can I stand where I'm not showing my back? We were all hoping that the big gable end wall on your house, where there was a huge heat loss, would have had external wall insulation. And we came and we did an interview with you earlier, where we were talking about the huge heat loss from this one wall, which wasn't dealt with as part of the scheme. So I don't know if you want to, and I think it was in your house as well that we were riffing with UB40. There's who we should credit, who obviously formed as a band only 100 yards from here in the Moseley School, and there was a rat in the kitchen. Well, there's a rat in the kitchen. What am I going to do? I'm going to retrofit. That's what I'm going to do. But sorry, I'm digressing. I really wanted to talk about the end gable wall, because it's typical of so many Balsall Heath houses.
Yeah, definitely. I think when we moved into the house, actually, we quickly noticed that wall was getting wet and the cold was coming through in. And Furkan, maybe you can talk a little bit more about what you did, actually, because we tried our best to solve the situation, but yeah.
We are end terrace, so that wall is literally covering whole house for us, every room. So it's a massive wall exposed to just outside directly, and I guess there's no insulation at all. Probably it's a cavity wall, but we didn't have any. Unfortunately, the fund was not enough to cover that. We were hoping that it would be actually better to get it insulated than maybe solar panels. It was an expensive thing. So many houses have that same issue, and terraced. So I guess it would be brilliant to somehow have, maybe cheaper solution but efficient, so that we don't lose heat from there. And also there's no damp because of that. I think they call it consolidation or something. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I live on Melrose Avenue also, along with two other people here. I live on Melrose Avenue, and I was so excited when I heard about this project, because once the cost of living went up, I was finding it difficult in a house on my own, 3-bedroom house by myself now, and I was worrying about the bills and the cold, so I was so excited. And then a little disappointed, because it was all supposed to be done by the end of July, and I hadn't heard things, and I didn't do anything about it because I just thought, well, I was lucky to have it done. And anyway, I now have solar panels, which are absolutely fantastic. I only had them fitted last Friday, and I've already done 2 loads of washing with the courtesy of the sun, so I'm really chuffed about that. I've had a new back door and vents and things that they put in the bathroom to let the air out. Ventilators, yeah. So, I mean, it has been a bit confusing because different people have phoned me up and said, we're so-and-so and we're coming, and I don't actually know what they're coming for till they get there. So I have been a bit confused, but because I've just been so grateful to get it, I was just, woo, okay, come and have a look. And so I'm just happy that my house has now got solar panels, which also, although I will benefit from them, if I want to sell the house, it will be a benefit as well. It will up the price of my house, I assume. Not that I'm planning on going anywhere yet, Mr. Khan. But, so yeah, I'm really, really, really pleased and not as worried about the winter as I was. I was really, really worried. So thank you very much. Retrofit.
Hi, I live in a house off Moseley Road, down by the Ladypool Road, and it's an old Victorian terrace, 2 up, 2 down, very drafty. And I was lucky to have all new windows, a new front door, and loft insulation, and extractor fans fitted to the kitchen and to the bathroom, which is amazing. I've lived there 26 years, and I had double glazing put in, but obviously 20 years ago. And some of those windows were broken, so in terms of safety, it's made a massive difference to me, and I'm hoping as well to see the benefits of that in the winter. Having a new front door has been amazing as well, and in terms of safety, that's been a massive improvement. And for me, the scheme has been amazing. The workmen that have come have all been really lovely. I've got a bit of a menagerie of animals, so I was really worried about dogs and cats and things, and they were all amazing with that. The only thing initially was the delay from signing up to the scheme to not hearing anything and nothing happening. But as soon as things started happening, it was really quick. But that kind of, you know, like we were saying about looking back and what do we need to learn from this, that kind of communication bit, because I know John gets lots of questions where you were being asked, and then we were contacting Dodds and Birmingham City Council, so that would be the only thing. But yeah, no complaints at all.
Do you mind if I do take a second just to contribute a little bit? I'm mainly here to listen, because it's really important that I hear what's happening, but the good and probably more importantly the less good, the bad. And what I want to be doing is actually taking that, learning from it, and making sure we as a council and the wider team, the wider delivery team, all learn from that and actually take it forward into future projects, which I'm very confident there will be future projects. There will be more funding at some point. We don't know when it's coming or where it's coming from at the moment, but there will be more funding. And the council is excuse me, absolutely committed to scaling up the delivery of retrofit across the city. I've been part of the team for just over a year, and it's been a really steep learning curve for me, I have to be honest. And one of there's a lot I've learned, but one of the really critical things that I've learned is this absolute need for the kind of ground up, community-led approach. We've tried before leading things as a council, leading this type of project as a council. We don't have the trust, we don't have the contacts, we're unable to kind of build that trust in the communities that people like John and Nigel in Acox Green and Mech have been able to do. And so we absolutely recognise that this sort of approach is essential, and we'll be kind of promoting this as we move forward, and a lot of the work that I'm going to be doing at a more strategic level is considering how we now scale up retrofit. And one of those areas is how do we engage better. We as a council, we know there's the appetite, but we haven't done a very good job of kind of harnessing that, and so we need to improve. So we're here to listen 100%, and we know things haven't been perfect. We know the communication's been poor. I'm not don't want to make excuses, but just to kind of give an indication what happens. The project is incredibly complex. There's too many organisations involved, too many people you have to contact, and these are all things we need to improve. And we're working in restrictive kind of criteria as well. We're working with incredibly tight timescales that come from government, and we're feeding all this back. So when you feed back to us, we are constantly feeding back to government as well, and we're hopeful that they will start to listen. But I really appreciate this, and very, very grateful for all your feedback, and it has been fantastic to be part of this team, even though I may not have been all that close on the ground meeting people, but to have been part of the wider team has been superb.
I'm going to come over to Noreen now, just taking up Dan's point of here to listen when things go wrong. So, Noreen, you've come along.
Hello, मेरा नाम नोरीन है. मैं नंबर 2 हैरिफोर्ड एवेन्यू में रहती हूँ. Last year, okay.
I've been asked to translate, so I'm multitasking today. This is Noreen, and she lives at number 2, Hereford Avenue.
जी, लास्ट ईयर नवंबर में मैंने फॉर्म फिल किया था ये ग्रांट के लिए, लेकिन कोई किसी ने उस वक्त का मेरे साथ कांटेक्ट नहीं किया ना. मैं एवरी टाइम फ़ोन करती रहती हूँ, लेकिन nobody contact me.
Thank you, the last bit. She applied last November, but she hasn't heard anything back, even though she's tried to find out what's been going on.
Thank you.
Now we're over here, let's keep going around this way.
हेलो, मेरा नाम शाहीन कौसर है और मैं नंबर 4 में रहती हूँ, मेलरोज एवेन्यू. Yeah, my palace they done my house and वो उन्होंने पहले मेरे गाल लगा दिया है.
मैं बहुत खुश हूँ.
हाँ जी, मैं बहुत खुश हूँ. उन्होंने पहले मेरे गाल लगाया, मगर nice, thank you so much.
She's at number 4 Melrose, and she's had a good experience. Where what was fitted? The solar panels have been fitted, and she's really happy with them.
And I think your house was one of the very last that we signed up in Melrose Avenue. We tried to knock on the door many times, and then your daughter was there, who's a nurse, was working very, very hard, working nights. And when we came and we talked about insulation, she was sort of, well, okay, maybe that's an interesting thing. But then when we talked about it being part of a much bigger thing, that we would love to do, planting trees, growing vegetables locally, looking at how we could have better transport choices with our bicycles and everything, then your daughter really lit up, and she was so enthusiastic. She was one of the one of the most receptive people that we met. So I think I'm so glad it went well in the end. I mean, that was again, it was I think it was November that we signed you up, and it's I know it's been, not everyone has said, but some of these waits have been really anxious times for people. I think we should say, not knowing if they've fallen out of the system, not knowing what they were waiting for, if they were waiting for something, what was happening. So, you know, it's lovely we're having this panel now at this time when nearly everyone's work has been completed. But I think, you know, there are lots of nodding heads on the panel here that there has been a lot of anxiety, and not everyone wanted to come down today. But there are some people who have written to me, or I've had conversations with, where they felt really that the system has been exploiting them, and that they're sort of very unhappy about various aspects that this is being done to them, and they haven't had a say about what, and they were promised wall insulation. A lot of people have sort of, you know, said, well, we were promised wall insulation and loft insulation, and the assessor came and said, oh, your house really needs this, but then because of costs and so forth, that wasn't allowed. So I think it's I'm just representing other views which haven't been audible yet here on this panel. But I'll pass on now to Marta, who has very kindly stayed late because you had another commitment. So thank you for staying, Marta. Hear your story.
Hello, so I'm Marta Vizcaya and I live in Mary Street. And so first of all to say that, their members have said, it has been very inspiring to see neighbors in my street for the first time talking about retrofit. I knew about the scheme because one of my neighbors knocked on my door saying, Marta, your house is in tatters, which is true. No, I'm honest here. Have you heard about this? So that kind of spirit and that kind of initiative, I found it very, very powerful. And also the notion, as other people have said, that is not something that we are applying for individually through schemes that you find online. The fact that the area is improving as a community, I think it has created synergies, and it also helps to change slightly the impression and the self-perception, perhaps, of an area that hasn't had as much visibility and as much investment as other neighboring South Birmingham areas. So I'm very positive about the scheme in principle and about the work that Retrofit Balsall Heath did in leveraging the money. Now, building on what Dan has said, I think for me what has been an issue has been the implementation, right? And I'm building on points that I think other people have made about thinking about homes, not units, and about people being at the center, not as somebody that they are talked about, done things on their behalf, and the impression that because it's for free, we should be grateful. It's not free. I mean, it's money that has been advocated for by people, and that actually, basically, I think all the contractors charge. So it's not free, and I think for me that's an important point. So from my side of things, I got loft room insulation, back door, front door is coming, because I think they hinged it wrongly and it opened outwards. I've also had, oopsie, yes, right, left, out, in, basic concepts for doors, I think. And also a kitchen window double glazed, for which I'm very grateful as well. I guess what I would say is I found the communication very poor. As Jana had said, different people in different project stages kept popping in, disappearing, things stalling. No clear idea from the beginning of what was going to be done. And taking into account that some of the measures are very, very technical, I pick on the point that has been made before about it's not that we are not ready, it's that there has to be investment in explaining to us what the measures involve and what options we have in ways that are accessible, not technical. And I'm a technical person in my own field, but I think I've had a master's in retrofitting in the last 6 months. True, I think we should all deserve a master's in retrofitting, community retrofitting, but basically, to get to the point, I think key points I found is that there was very little accountability. When things get wrong, each contractor kept blaming the previous ones, saying it wasn't them. I keep chronic all emails and records of our calls, right? Things happen like no records made of visits that had happened to my house, no records of the people that had come to my house, and decisions made before about the measures to be installed in my house that had been confirmed to me, then queried afterwards. So if I hadn't advocated very strongly for myself, instead of all those measures, I would have just ended up with front and back doors, which is still good, but we go back to the point. Just because they are free, I don't think, it is just a matter of being treated less respectfully, perhaps. And last point I would make, sometimes when I challenged, saying, yes, I haven't imagined surveyors coming to my house, I was told things like, oh, you may have misunderstood, or, oh, you may have confused those tradesmen with some others going to your house. I had to constantly provide email proof that the measures had been agreed with me already. And when I asked for complaints protocols several times, none were facilitated. it wasn't never very clear where I could talk about constructively about what was being wrong. And I guess my final point is that in a community as diverse as Balsall Heath, assuming that just because I'm accented, I don't understand, well, I've been here 25 years, perhaps you don't understand me. I can guarantee you I understand you perfectly well. And I think it boiled down to the point of perhaps contractors very, very divorced from the community that they are serving. They see perhaps the council as their client as opposed to the houses that they are visiting. And to me, there is a fundamental issue of accountability and respect. And all those delays, all those repeated visits of people that theoretically hadn't been to my house ever, despite the fact that I had their mobile number when they called me for addresses, etc. Don't know, it's money wasted that should have gone to retrofit yet more houses. Sorry if I've gone on a bit of a speech, but I felt that the angle about consideration and respect of diverse communities starts by treating us as stakeholders as well, not as people to whom things are done, so they should be grateful for any freebies. So thank you everyone for what you have achieved, and I hope as well that colleagues that are visiting us do pick up on those points.
I think that's really interesting because I've just felt like I felt grateful for everything, and I've sort of let people in and offered tea and answered because I feel grateful. So I think, and you're right, somebody else said that to me actually, it's not about being grateful because the money's there, and some of the things that happened were wasting money. And so I didn't say that before because I'm so high on the fact I've got a solar panel and I had some good things, but yes, we heard that.
And the community should be treated with dignity, and like we can critique systems, and we shouldn't just be in this charitable recipient mode because it's also our taxes, it's also lots of things that contribute to this. So I think these two things can be true. You can be grateful and say we're not just people that should just do whatever to us because thank God we're getting something. I think those two ideas.
If I may, it's not something. If I may, it's not, I don't think I need a mic. I'm Spanish, I'm loud by definition. All right, okay, you know. So yeah, like normally people tell me to tone the volume down, not the opposite. So I guess what I'm saying is that sometimes it's not a matter of the money. It's a matter of thinking the point you made before, I think colleagues made before in other panel. Yeah, I think it was your point actually about, it's not that we are not ready, but what do we need to engage and to understand and be in control. And a simple thing that costs no money is when something is a commitment to put it in writing so that stakeholders, homeowners, have evidence, something they can chew, understand, go back to, refer to, and they cannot be challenged like I did. I was constantly about, oh, you must have not understood well.
I think it's really powerful points that Marta makes, and I think, you know, respect is absolutely essential. But I think there are 3 points I just want to draw out, and I know not everyone's spoken yet, and you're not forgotten. But, you know, I think from what Marta's been saying, I think respect is absolutely key. And I think you've made that point very eloquently. I won't go over it again. I think the fact, the stakeholder point, I think is really important. That we, the community, campaigned for this money. We went to the council before even Lads 3 had been thought of, and we said, this is our vision. We want to do a community-led neighbourhood retrofit. We are the community. We've got all these organisations which are already here. Our mosques, community interest companies, different Saheli Hub, for whom we're going to hear tomorrow, etc. We have been talking about sustainability for decades, and I think we should flag up as well that the IFES, the Islamic Federation for Ecology and Environmental Sciences, was founded in Balsall Heath in the 1980s. Kamran, who's going to be speaking here tomorrow, has been chair for many years. They're one of the signatories on the chart up there of the Climate Majority Project, Jules Thompson, aka the poet, who was speaking earlier, is part of that. But I think so. As stakeholders, the community is an essential stakeholder here. But I think the system. And we're very grateful to Dan and to Yingman and Jenny in Civico and everyone who's been involved, who've helped us to sort of claw back as much community ownership and of this scheme as we can. But still, we have to say that this is despite it having been set up without the community as a stakeholder, without a table at which the community has a seat, and therefore without the sort of management and accountability and so forth that we would want going forward. If this is an imagination lab, let's imagine. And in fact, I don't think we even need to think, that this is absolutely not cloud cuckoo land, as the way Imi put it earlier. But I'm old enough to have been involved in the last stage of the Castle Vale Housing Action Trust, which was the board of the Housing Action Trust, which regenerated Castle Vale, was a majority of local residents, and there were others on that board who were technocrats, lawyers, architects, etc., to make sure that the decisions were informed decisions made by the residents. But the decisions were made by the residents, and the successor of that in Castle Vale still goes on, structured rather differently. But I think it is not at all unrealistic to say, look, community-led retrofit needs to have accountability to the community as well as to a supply chain and a contractor and so forth. That's the second point about stakeholders. And the third point you make about people coming into our community, I think you put it, who may not understand. I think one of the shifts we've been talking about is to neighbourhood collectives, and those who weren't here earlier, I think it's worth reiterating this, that if we had, like a sort of local GP, if we had somewhere in the neighbourhood where we could train up local people and younger people to give jobs, to give skills, and to recognise that in our community there are lots of people who perhaps have been fitting windows for 30 years, may not have all the pieces of paper, but are well skilled to do this work. And if, as part of a scheme like this, which has had to go through government procurement, there could have been training up and mentoring and skills and people brought on board to do that. But looking forward for the next stage, it would be lovely that those local skills, and Civic Square are doing this trade skills initiative at the moment. Cheerio, Sabrina and Furkan, lovely to see you, are doing this... doing the trade skills program at the moment. People from Balsall Heath have been on it, and I know one person who's actually resigned their job and wants to train as a carpenter with retrofit skills as a result of that. So I think if we in the community can do this for ourselves, in the sense of having a sort of stakeholder and sort of governance and so forth, but also literally in learning to do these skills. Some of them are very technical and perhaps not, you've got the masters in retrofit already, you may not want to go further and learn how to do the technical bits. But I think some people in the community are already skilled to do this, and certainly people-powered retrofit in Manchester have been pioneering that sort of model where the local community are trained up to do those things. Sorry, I've said more than I meant to at this stage, but I just wanted to bring those 3 points out of what Marta has said, and I'm going to hand the microphone on to Fran and Rajan here.
Hello, I'm Fran, and I'm not in this particular setup, but this is absolutely fascinating. Rajan and I joined the Balsall Heath housing co-op about a year and a half ago. And so basically, we are owners of our, well, we're not owners, we're shareholders in our community housing. So we set the rents, we decide what actually happens, and part of it is trying to develop a community spirit with the housing. It's split into 2 types of housing. One is about, we are in a 70s kind of block, and there are about 3 of those within the housing co-op. And then there are a number of Victorian houses that are sort of scattered, or another block of them. So it's, more recently, we were part of a bid through West Midlands for a whole lot of pots of money to go into community retrofitting for social housing. This is different to the private housing. Our experience so far is that we've heard that we have the money that was bid for. We understand that this is the situation. But it is very interesting to hear that actually we're in limbo, and it may be that we don't really discover what the actual practicalities are of us going forward for our Victorian housing. And we seem to have quite a big time frame, which is not the same for your project. Your project had to be done within a very short period of time, didn't it? Ours has a longer period of time, but we could just be going towards the edge of a cliff, we suddenly have to do something at the last minute. And so it is about the communications. It's understanding what's happening at West Midlands level, and we don't at the moment have any idea. But we do have, as shareholders of the properties, we have an onus on us to bring the level of the properties up to be retrofitted to a level C. Otherwise, we cannot rent out. And we rent out at really reasonable rates. Because we govern ourselves, we can do that. We can keep rents within affordable limits. And there are not very many co-ops. There should be more of them. There is a new one in Sturchley going forward, but the cooperative movement, particularly for rented accommodation, is really having a bit of a difficulty at the moment all round. So I would urge people, if they feel that they want to be in rented accommodation, to try and push for cooperative housing, and that this is part of our community.
Thanks, Fran. I think one of the best things for me of living in Balsall Heath is the retrofit, is this whole thing that there are people within our community who are bringing all our different communities together. The fact that we're sitting here, so many of us, too many to have much time to speak. It's very beautiful. And one of the things we're doing is we're changing our lives. We're making ourselves more comfortable. We're having more money in our accounts because we're spending less on energy. But one of the things we're doing in doing this is we're consuming far less fossil fuels, gas, electricity, coal. We're really reducing this. And so what we are, all of us in Balsall Heath, we are climate activists. All of us, everybody in this room is a climate activist. Everybody who is having this done is making a small step towards ending the fossil fuel era. Okay, we're in the fossil fuel era, so for the last several hundred years we've been dependent on fossil fuels. Before that we didn't have them. And we're seeing that the fossil fuel era, either we end it ourselves, we human beings, we end it, or the fossil fuel era will end us. Extinction. This is how serious it is. So that's a big thing. So we can't be thinking about that all the time. But what we are doing is we are activists in our community and coming together, becoming resilient like this, getting to know one another's faces, eating with one another, drinking with one another, becoming a coherent community is really important, and also working across communities. This is one of the wonderful things that's happening in this organisation, which John is leading, and others. I just want to say one more thing. This morning I was in Birmingham with other people, and we were going to people who are insurers and HSBC, people who are investing in fossil fuels. And we're asking them to stop investing in fossil fuels, in coal, basically because they're killing our species, killing our world. And so I've got this sticker which says, "Climate crisis, are you ready to actually do something about it?" So we've been sticking these around. So all of you are part of this. You're part of this non-violent civil resistance to fossil fuels. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajan. I'm just...
The installations about climate justice equals racial.
Yes, yes.
Sorry, carry on.
I just want to bring in Nigel Lloyd now, because Balsall Heath has been generous with the funding. That part of it has gone to Acox Green and part to Tyseley. And as Nigel's here, and I think it's important, the Acox Green story is told as well. Nigel.
Deepest sofa I've been in for weeks. Nigel Lloyd, Acox Greener, which encompasses both Acox Green and Tyseley and Small, and hay mills. But everybody forgets hay mills, including me. I wanted to make a few points about the experience in Acox Green and Tyseley has been very much the same as here. One thing that has been a big issue has been GDPR. Everybody saying that you can't say anything or share any information because of GDPR. As a result, the only stories that Acox Greener has heard has been complaints, because when they failed to be able to get through on the telephone, so that they only got an answer phone, or when they, basically, all we heard was the complaints. Now, we've been able to hear through neighbours and our own links some of the positive things as well, but we need to set up systems so that people can get access to at least their own information, so that they know what's happening with their application, so that they know what's going to happen next, so they know what decisions have already been made that they haven't heard about, so that they get information that isn't a standard letter, the same as people who are having doors put in, or the same as people who are having solar panels put in. There's at the moment, there tends to be a single letter which is absolutely generic, so you don't learn anything from it. So that was one thing. The second is that retrofit is not a single thing that happens and you're finished. We need to think of retrofit as being something that is a continual process, and that we need to tackle the things that are most important first and then move on. At the moment, nobody is considering cooling of houses. I'll bet you in 5 years' time, we're thinking, God, why weren't we doing anything about that? And why weren't we, at the very least, making provision for cooling in the future? Why weren't we making space for ducts where cool air could be passed through when we were putting in things for radiators? So we need to be thinking in a longer-term way and realize that this is just a journey, and we're not going to get to an end. We're just going to continue reacting to changing things. So that was a second point. And attached to that is that the measures that have been considered acceptable under these projects, this project, haven't been, they've been too restricted. So that, for example, although insulation, external wall insulation and internal wall insulation are permitted, we've only got, I think, about one of them, maybe two of them, as demonstrators. Similarly with heat pump, there's, I think, one project, one house that's had a heat pump fitted. Now, it's wonderful that they have been able to do that. That's super that they have been flexible enough to do that, because at least now we have one that we can point out to people. But Acox Green hasn't been told which ones they are, and we don't know because GDPR doesn't allow us to be told. So we need to include ventilation right definite at the beginning, but also we're aware that the whole the whole supply chain is very, very constrained. I did a whole lot of retrofit on our house, and we have mechanical ventilation with heat recovery. And when we had the heat wave a year ago, it packed up and died. It was all too much. Great sigh, and off it went. We've spent the last year, first of all, trying to find people who are able to supply equipment. We found somebody in Scotland. This is the second city of Britain. We then tried to find somebody who could install it. We found somebody in Kent. We kept on trying. We found somebody nearby, Nottingham. So somebody comes from Nottingham to do it for us. And this is mechanical ventilation with heat recovery. I'm sure it is true also of external wall insulation. We've noticed already that there's a lot of solar panels being done and a lot of kitchen and bathroom ventilation being done. These are important, but we need to get the insulation done first, and it's not being done first. And one last point I'd like to make, please, is that Dan, who's here, Tonya, who was here earlier, have been absolutely bloody fantastic and have completely changed my view of Birmingham City Council and its effectiveness and so on. We haven't talked at all about Section 114 and bankruptcy of Birmingham City Council. I think we're all praying that it doesn't bring a halt to these things. But I'd just like to say that please make sure that your group continues, and it's made a huge difference, and I've been impressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nigel. I think we've got a few more minutes. I think I just wanted to ask, looking forwards, if anyone here has got ideas, if we think of this as an imagination lab, as you know, we've heard some really powerful stories from people, and I think if we're looking at this as an imagination lab, I think we're in such a privileged position in Balsall Heath that we have been doing community leadership on this, which no one else around the country really has done in this way. So from where we now are, which we know is not perfect, but it would be lovely if anyone's got sort of, you know, final thoughts as to what you would like to see as we go forward for the next stage, because I'm well aware Balsall Heath is 4,900 homes. We've had funding to do 520, some of them are in Acox Green and whatever, and those that we've done some work to, some of them have just, because of the limitations of funding and so forth, have had a room in the roof insulated, their loft, but the rest of the house has not been treated at all. Some of them have had solar panels, which is great, it can cut the energy bills, but it doesn't actually reduce by 1 single kilowatt hour the heat loss of those properties. Imi's got a point. Yeah, materials. All right, Joe wants to say something, perhaps about...
You carry on. No, it's not. If you're going to do it's
materials, yeah. I mean, I think the materials which have been used in the project, we had no input into at all. Some people have said, look, I've got my lovely old timber windows. There's no way I'm going to let them be ripped out and put plastic windows in. And I think there hasn't been complete transparency from my point of view as to what's been on offer. And I think I think if we're trying to move forward, and there's a wonderful display from Andy at the Architects Climate Action Network, give a wave, Andy, about natural building materials. We heard from Jules earlier about hemp, growing hemp in Suffolk, to use natural building materials, both for the health of the planet, lower carbon emissions, for the health, as we've been hearing on the Amazing Health panel earlier. I think the materials part is so important to be using natural building materials where we can going forward. And Jo had a point. I will now pass over to her.
Thank you. I'm just so delighted to have this gathering of our Retrofit Balsall Heath community here So much of this work is relational. It's about relationships. It's about building relationships with our neighbours and making our neighbours friends and supporting our neighbours. I want to just highlight, we've got these fantastic installations here that I hope everybody's seen as they came in. At the top here by Faisal Hussein, we have climate justice equals racial justice. Is absolutely key to what we're doing here. What? Exactly, racial justice equals climate justice. And up here, we've got, there is something fulfilling about belonging. And that's what we're doing, we're belonging to each other. And one other thing that you were saying about the dream, that bit, I think we need to, it's been a journey for Mr. Khan to come all the way here from Melrose Avenue. You know, it's an achievement that he's come today, that Noreen is here, that Shaheen is here. For people, it's a journey within our neighbourhood for people to travel to another bit of the neighbourhood. I have a vision that we can travel as a community to Machynlleth, to Wales, to come together to really travel in this ministry of retrofit, to share our experience, and that will help build us going forward too. So I just want to appreciate all these different, the journeying that we need to do together.
Guest appearance from Daniel Camp from the Dodd Group, who some of you may know is the building contractor who's been doing the work.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, thank you everyone. I've been sitting in the background this afternoon just talking to a number of people as I've come through and listening to what everyone has to say, primarily to take on board all the points, including yourself and everybody else, the good and the bad, as Daniel Gregory said when he spoke earlier on. That feedback will be taken back and put into place 100%. This is a massive scheme. It's the first one of its kind. It's the largest in the UK, I believe, Daniel, isn't it? So it's been no small feat for anybody involved, and the team have gone through a massive learning curve. But it is good to take the feedback, and I can promise everybody that that will be put into place. Just something that John talked about the sustainable materials, because that's something a lot of customers have come to us about, or a lot of homeowners have come to us about. Unfortunately, because it's a government-funded programme, the materials that we use have to be quite specific to be what we call PAS compliant, without getting into too much technical detail. But to get the funding from the government into Birmingham, and for that funding to then pay for the work in the individual properties, we have to meet very strict criteria. And unfortunately, a lot of those criteria at the moment are material biased. So it would be great to lobby government and go forward and say, why aren't we fitting timber high-performance windows? Why aren't we fitting more sustainable insulation measures? That would be perfect, and we would like to see that happen. But that's something that has to be driven from the top down. But having said that, if you drive it from the bottom up and pass that message up from the community and the end users, which is yourselves, that's a great message. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Daniel, for coming along and being brave enough to enter the lion's den, as it were, to hear what people have got to say. I think we're probably wrapping up now, unless anyone has got any final comment from Rajan. Looking forward.
Yeah, looking forward. One thing, Daniel Gregory is in the room still. Daniel? Okay. One thing I would like to address Birmingham City Council is that what I would like to ask is to be bold, be Birmingham, and to make the Balsall Heath a training hub for retrofit in Britain, in the West Midlands and in Britain. And I would like our Birmingham City Council to put money into that. And I would like them to work with people who are in a position to do top quality training, and we'll take advice on that and who those people are, and to make that happen. So that is a solid request I would like to make, that we become a training hub.
Well, I think on that very positive note, we'll finish the panel now. Some have had to go early because of childcare or other responsibilities. But please give a huge round of applause to everyone who's been brave enough to come here and tell their stories.